Hey there, you guys, it's Irene here, and I wanted to head back in here and talk about the trauma tips. So a little while ago I did a part one. What does the nervous system have to do with it? And what does trauma have to do with it? And I want to flesh that out a little bit more because clearly the whole story cannot be told in 10 minutes. So one of the key pieces that we need to understand, I believe, as humans, are these different nervous system pieces and what they are, what they mean. And true story, not too long ago, I was at a conference, and it wasn't a health conference, it was actually a business-related conference. I met someone else who was interested in helping people calm their nervous systems. They were talking about the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system, etc. And I asked them, I said, well, do you teach your students what those different branches are? Because it's complex. It's not just one nervous system. We have a central nervous system, a peripheral nervous system, an interoceptive nervous system. There's so many different branches, and often I have found folks who don't want to teach that level of depth to their clients or students for whatever reason. I'm not sure. Perhaps it's that the practitioner doesn't actually know the full detail, or maybe they sense that it's not important. But here's what I've learned in working with thousands of people in now about 57 plus countries, is that by giving our students the full spectrum of all these different systems and what they are, what they do, and understanding how our body needs various parts of these nervous systems, or else we wouldn't survive. We wouldn't be able to maintain safety and go into survival when we need to and come out of survival when it's safe. So by knowing and understanding these different systems, we actually have an upper hand, because as humans, we share some very unique characteristics with other animals and other mammals, namely our survival responses, those fight, flight, and freeze responses. And more importantly, or not necessarily more importantly, but just as important, we have this higher brain that is our neocortex. And it is what gives us our human uniqueness. It gives us creativity. It gives us our ability to think ahead, to plan, to be creative, to engage socially. There are so many unique characteristics for us humans. The trouble is that because we have this higher thinking brain that is so smart, it can get confused with what it's feeling on the inside. And so the reason I'm saying this is because when I think back to this individual I met at this conference, I felt that it was a little unfortunate, a little sad that they didn't feel that it was important for their people to know the depth. And one of the hallmarks, one of my signature teaching pieces, if you will, is that I want my students to know all the branches in intimate detail, so that when they are having an experience that is more survival based, they can name it and they can say to themselves, this is my physiological stress response acting out due to past wiring, or maybe it's current. Maybe you are in a threatening situation. Maybe there is a threat right there in front of you and you feel what's going on. One of the reasons we end up with post-traumatic stress or complex post-traumatic stress, PTSD, is because what's occurring is happening so quickly and so fast, and our capacity isn't high enough to process the overwhelming events. So we go into either fight, flight, which is that sympathetic, adrenalized energy that basically defends or gets us the heck out of that situation. Or when we're under threat, we go into what's called a parasympathetic shutdown, which is the system literally going into a freeze, shutdown, numbing out, shock state. Sometimes we want that, right? Sometimes we want that. If, let's for example say, and knock on wood, hopefully this never happens, but I break my leg really badly. I want my system to go into shock. I want it to go into this deep, what's called dorsal branch, the dorsal of the parasympathetic. This is part of the autonomic nervous system. Automatic meaning autonomic, automatic. We want to go into that so that our blood pressure drops. We stop pumping out blood, right? Because we could lose a lot of blood with a broken bone. And we want to release the chemicals that numb us and basically lets us not feel the pain. So we want those to come on board. Here's the thing though, for many of our current day ailments as human beings here living in the Western world, and I talked about this in my previous part 1 of these trauma tips, is that we have past traumatic experiences, and usually not just one, there's many typically, let's say a childhood of adversity and abuse. We may get used to living in that shutdown because it's the safest place to be, because the environment is so darn unsafe, and what we're feeling inside, which is all our adrenaline and reactions to threat, it's too much for a little system to handle. And usually when we're young, we don't have the cognition on board, the mental ability to process what's going on, and so we shut down. This is how we disconnect from our body. This is how we lose our awareness of our environment. This is what breeds clumsiness and always getting injured. This is also what breeds high levels of chronic illness, where the system is in literally a metabolic hibernation. It's in a shutdown mode. Over time, that creates illness. So, rewind back to the nervous system. We've got this autonomic nervous system. This is part of our peripheral nervous system. So if you think about your body, so connect to it right now, feel into it. There is a central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord, meaning central, right? Then there's this peripheral nervous system. We also dub it the PNS, and it is the nerves that literally branch out from that spinal cord and then go everywhere, okay? So part of that peripheral nervous system is the autonomic nervous system, or the automatic system. And then one level deeper, the branches of those are the sympathetic, fight, flight, parasympathetic, which is the slowing down nervous system. All right, it's the one that slows us down. Now, I'm not going to dive into the 2 different branches of the parasympathetic because there's 2 more branches, and then from there's another subset of 2 branches within the parasympathetic. That'll be maybe the next trauma tip we do here. But suffice it to say, number 1, we need these systems. We have them for a reason. They keep us safe, they protect us, and they also do things within our system so we don't have to think about it, right? If it was to get really, really hot in here, I would start to sweat. If it was really cold, I'd start to shiver. If I was to have a glass of water or eat some food, my digestion starts without me having to think about it. It's automatic, autonomic. So that's another responsibility of the autonomic nervous system. This is why when we have long-term standing chronic stress, trapped traumatic stress, talked about that in part 1. So when we've had stored traumatic stress in our system, basically that autonomic nervous system's fight, flight, and freeze mechanisms have basically been jacked up and on for some people a lifetime. And what that does is it hinders the capacity for our organ systems to work properly, like our digestion, like our immune system, like our circulatory system, our endocrine hormonal system, our reproductive system. There's lots of systems, right? So, bottom line, learn about your autonomic nervous system. Hopefully you just learned a little bit, and know that these survival mechanisms are important. They're there for a reason, but we don't want to live in stress survival 24/7 because then it breaks down our system. More soon. Be sure to check out the past one and the next one. Take very good care. Bye for now.